AM 650, KGAB Radio. My name's Glenn Wood. Thanks for joining me. It's a Friday, 8/11's the time. Sitting in the studio with me is Bill Barron. He is with Wyoming Liberty Group, and we're going to do a bit of an update today on transparency. Since you guys won that one, I mean, you just flat out won that one on transparency. So thanks for doing that. And so since then, there's been some good news, especially with the auditor's office, for example. So are we discussing more good news or bad news or just progress? I mean, how's it going since we've won?
I think it's good news and progress in figuring out where we go from here. So the bill that was passed, that becomes effective July 1st, and it makes some changes to or I guess updates the current law in the books, and I guess helps the agencies figure out what they need to do.
Okay, well, when I look at this, I notice that the different agencies, and again, not just the auditor's office, but different agencies, even though the thing has not officially been signed into law, they're acting. In fact, the governor's having a meeting with our new auditor to meet with the public to talk about some of this.
So yes, so on Monday I went to the Wyoming Financial Transparency Working Group, and it's a volunteer group with the governor, the auditor, some representatives and senators and a couple other experts, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to implement the new law and how they're going to make this happen and meet the requirements that have been set up.
Okay, so when we have, well, let's talk about some of the requirements now. What exactly do they need to set up?
So, okay, so the new bill did three things. It made the law applicable to all state entities, required the release of the records in a specified amount of time. So they now have a week to respond or acknowledge a request, and then I believe 30 days to complete the request unless there is good cause or reason that they can't complete that, and then they have some wiggle room there to figure things out. It designates a public records person, I guess, so each agency can set up a person to handle these requests, and it sets up a person within the state to manage the disputes, the ombudsman, if I'm saying that correctly.
Okay, so now what about some of the areas that have been, I would guess, of concern, but I just haven't heard anything yet? So, for example, we still have to audit our schools. I think that's going to be a big job. I mean, I know there's been a document dump there. Someone has to go through all that.
And that's up to organizations like Equality State Taxpayers Association, Open the Books, Wyoming Liberty Group. Again, the organizations doing these requests are going to have to go through the information and see if, I guess, there's anything of interest. I mean, right now, Wyoming Liberty Group is with the school districts. We're just trying to see how many requests we can get back from doing these FOIA requests.
In other words, seeing if there's any resistance out there?
Well, just seeing what the compliance is. Now school districts are a little different than the state agencies, but as far as the laws go.
Has there been any resistance anywhere at all yet, or has everybody just been pretty cooperative?
Well, the whole reason for the passage of this bill was past resistance. State auditor's office and Open the Books Open the Books had some trouble getting information out of the state auditor's office, and there was a lawsuit which is being dismissed, and the information has been released. So it's the current bill was to, I guess, help streamline the process, and
But so far, though, as you've talked to different agencies, has there been anybody out there who's said no, or has given, or delayed, or given a bit of a problem, or has it just been smooth sailing?
Not that I know of yet. I know there are some issues with fees. They are allowed under the A&I's rules. They are allowed to charge fees. So that may be a continuing issue, discussing, if somebody requests a huge amount of documents, is the state agency allowed to, how many the amount of fees they're allowed to charge to.
Okay, because I do know that the auditor's office gave back quite a bit of money on fees, which I always wondered, okay, you're going to charge someone a fee because it's going to cost us to go ahead and do this research for you. So here's how much we're going to pass the cost on to you. But it seems like the old auditor's office, they just threw out a big number in hopes of driving away open the books.
Yeah, I don't know. There was definitely some issues there, and they've been resolved. So going forward in in transparency is, again, I think the discussion will be, what information needs to be released. How are they gonna get it out there? How much do they need to charge if there's it's over a certain amount of documents that are requested, because it does take time, and it is a cost to the agency.
All right, more with Wyoming Liberty Group in just a moment. It's AM 650 KGAB. Time we have right now is 8:20, 35 degrees, AM 650 KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Phone number, by the way, if you have any questions for Wyoming Liberty Group, 632-6500 or 888-503-6500. So sitting in the studio with me is Philip Barron from Wyoming Liberty Group, who went to a meeting. Because who was there at the meeting that you went to?
So we had the governor, we had the state auditor, we have some other experts. Gail Simmons from Sheridan, who has a background in government finance, a couple senators and representatives were on the phone, and then the other interested groups sitting in the audience and commenting.
Okay, and I would guess Open the Books was there too, or did they have a representative?
Yeah, I believe they had somebody represent, or the Equality State taxpayers had worked with them. That they had a representative there.
Okay, and as you watched this, what did you get out of it? I mean, what mainly do you think the point they were trying to make during the meeting?
I think the point was, how are they gonna implement this now that the agencies are required to do this? How do they make it as easy as possible for somebody to get access to this information? And one of the things that was actually much of the meeting talked about, how do they organize the data? How do they get it out there? Because each agency has their own system, and it's not consolidated. So one of the big things that was talked about was getting a bid for some sort of database software that's commonly used in government transparency in other states, to put all the information, pull it all into one site where somebody could search this and find what they're looking for easily.
How much does that cost, a database software?
Now, okay, so the governor originally thought the cost of this might be up to $500,000. Now, one of the experts on this in this working group had done best practices for other states, and she had thought it could cost anywhere between, $30,000 and $100,000. So they are going to, I believe, get bids for two of the most commonly used softwares.
Did they talk about why it might cost as much? Because we were talking off mic, I get suspicious when I hear anyone in government saying, well, it's going to cost this much, because oftentimes I see the private sector doing the same task for a whole lot less. Did they justify how much it was going to cost? For why $30,000 or $500,000 or something like that?
Yeah, I think there were justifications based on what it was. I believe 8 other states were studied and their best practices and what they had spent. And these are states that are bigger than Wyoming. The surprising thing to me was that they thought this was actually going to cost them a lot less than originally anticipated.
Okay.
So,
well, now, then I guess the next question is, did they get into this? What exactly does the software do? In other words, how does it work? And I would assume that if I were to go to any government agency and ask a specific question, they'd be able to just type in my search parameters and the program would go ahead and do it for them. Is that what we're talking about here?
So, okay, so the two softwares that other states use, one's called OpenGov and one's called Socrata. So they're database softwares that allow each state agency to upload the information into a database on a server, and then there would be a, let's say, Wyoming transparency website you would go to, and you could search it by category or however the information they decide to organize that, and you could find what you're looking for easily.
Okay, so in other words, I would be able to, rather than having to go to the agency and ask someone, I'd be able to just go online and just surf away and figure it out?
Yeah. and I guess that's the idea, is to pull everything into one place, make it easy to find. Now, the state auditor, on their own, they are going to, they said possibly within the next 3 months, put up a transparency page on their website where they are going to allow access to information that they would upload monthly or even weekly, possibly.
Well, that brings me into my next question, because I started thinking, well, we just got to make sure that this is the only other transparency issue we have to worry about, is make sure that they're actually loading up everything they're supposed to load up, that nothing was missed, nothing was held back.
And again, that would be somebody who's got some expertise in this, or knows what they're looking for, will have to check that.
Yeah, what kind of I don't know what kind of a red flag that would be, because if there was some kind of an expenditure and it wasn't loaded for whatever reason, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone's doing something bad. Maybe they just forgot to load it or didn't load it correctly, so it didn't get up there, or maybe someone is trying to hide something, whatever the case is. But it would take some watchdog out there who knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, this would be a good question for an experienced accountant or somebody. But I think the idea with most of this information is not necessarily the watchdog function. That is one part of it. The reason to have open public records is to allow for self-governance, to allow people to see how these processes work, how much things cost.
Sure.
What is your government doing? So if they want to say help change something in a couple of years, they might be able to figure out the process.
See, this would answer the question for me and quite a few other people, because I keep looking at our schools, which, boy, what a budget they have, and yet we can never seem to satisfy their appetite for more money. And I keep looking at it thinking, well, what are you doing with the money that we sent you? Well, okay, this would be a good answer to that question, because I think they're too top heavy, and some people have called the show, said they would love to get in there and find out, what do administrators make? How much money do they spend on every little thing? Because it's a lot of that nickel and diming that ends up blowing a budget through the roof. So, yeah, we'd be able to at least get into the school system and answer that question and see if there really is a problem there.
Okay, so the schools are a different animal when it comes to the...
Glad I asked that.
The records request. So the stuff I'm talking about would be for state agency. Now, the way school financing works in the most simplest terms is the legislature appropriates an amount of money to the school foundation fund, and that gets split up based on law, court case, and rules in the Department of Ed to each school district, and then each school district has a school board that decides how that money is spent. So you have to request from each school district individually to get those spending amounts because of how they're governed.
So is this going to be part of that program that you were telling us about?
No, because this is just state. School districts are technically not state agencies.
Yeah, okay. Now, see, that confuses me, because it sounds like a school should be a state agency. Why wouldn't they be one?
Well, because they are locally governed by their local school board, even though they're state funded.
Okay.
It's how we've decided to set
Because
things up.
having said that, if there's any place that we could use some transparency, I would say it would be in the local school district. So we'll have to see if there's any resistance there.
Well, that's something Wyoming Liberty Group we're doing. We sent out, actually, our attorney sent out requests to school district and is recently within the last week, and is trying to see how many responses we get back, and what type of information we're able to get back.
So, in other words, Wyoming Liberty Group is doing just a little bit of fishing to see what bites.
Yeah, we're just trying to see what happens.
Okay. So now, when you put out requests, can you give me a clue or hint as to what kind of requests you're putting up?
So these are a FOIA request. So the overarching law for these types of requests, the federal law is the Freedom of Information Act, and that's what allows this stuff to take place, and then it's trickled down to the state level and state laws. The types of requests, we're just requesting like salary information, checkbook, spending information, what they're allowed to give us as public information, because some information is private.
Well, a piece of private information would be like a teacher's social security number or where they live or something like that. Grab your headphones. I have just enough time for one quick call over here. This is Glenn, who's on the phone. Okay. Not hearing anything. Try this again. This is Glenn, who's on the phone. All right, if you want to try back, we'll do it at another time. Thanks for calling in. 632-6500 is the phone number, although I doubt we have time for this. You're writing about this. You guys are researching this. Where do we find all of that?
You find it at, just search Wyoming Liberty Group, and we also have a Facebook page.
Okay. Is there any particular titles or anything that we're looking for on this, or is it just transparency?
It's a transparency. It's a continuing topic. There's been a lot written in the past on this.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Sam 650 KGAB.